So I'm gonna record this part, but go ahead.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sure most of you have heard of the Gambia before because it's very close to Sierra Leone. And I had a chance to visit Sierra Leone, I think 2 years ago, about 2 years ago. And I see that it's very, very similar to the Gambia in so many ways. So, and I really enjoyed my trip over there. So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Assutech, where we were, how we started out, and I'm sure that you will be able to relate to a lot of these things as entrepreneurs, and especially because there's a lot of similarities between the Gambia and Sierra Leone. And then I would take in any questions that you may have, right? So I had a slide prepared a while ago. I was presenting to university students some time back. And I think that it might help to share those slides, share my screen, and so I can show you, tell you a little bit about Astrotech. Sounds good? Right, so we started out a couple of years ago. So when Hellen reached out, one of the things he wants me to talk about is my journey and how this whole company started out. And so I lived in the rural part of the country, right? So where I grew up, there was no electricity and there was no internet, right? I mean, there was internet, but we didn't have access. It was dial-up internet. And in 2005, I went on holiday in the city at my brother's house, and I got to use a computer for the first time, right? And before that, I was very interested in electronics, building stuff. And I was really fascinated by computers. And fast forward in 2006, I used the internet for the first time. So I crossed the river to go to the city to create my first email address. And the reason why that's interesting is because the name of the company is based off that email address. Because I walked in the internet cafe and say, hey, I want a box, whatever that is. Because the concept of mailboxes is still in people's heads. Like, okay, email is the replacement for mailboxes. They say, okay, what's your name, Hassan? What's your surname, Jallow? Where do you want to make your first email address? I didn't know what to say. And the person just said, Hassan Jallow 2006, whatever the mail client was. And so that became my first email. So I was really attached to the email, look for the smallest opportunity to share my email address with somebody who I could correspond with, just to have a reason to cross the river, to use the internet and send emails. And fast forward a couple of years later, I had to move to one of the schools in the urban areas. So really, I was very fortunate to be in the school. So very good school. And I had, by the way, when I was in SL, although I didn't have much, I managed to save up to buy a computer. There was no electricity. So what I used to do is, so my teachers at junior school were very interested in computers. So I talked to them a lot about computers. So they would buy fuel, because my mom got a generator for us. So they would buy fuel for the generator. So I'll teach them about computers. And then I get more fuel to use the computer. So that's really how I get to use the computer. And fast forward in high school, somebody told me that, it's one thing to use a computer, but it's another thing to make the things that people use. And that thing is called coding. I said, oh, coding, that sounds very interesting. So I set out looking for somebody to teach me coding. But I couldn't find any. I reached out to somebody who was not in the country at the time. And he sent me a message. He's like, I know a couple of coders in the Gambia, but I think you can go online and Google how to code. So I went online, I Googled how to learn computer programming. So the website that showed up, certainly it's not the best in hindsight to learn coding, but I think they had the best SEO. And I downloaded this book called I went to cprogramming.com and I downloaded this ebook. That's what I used to learn to code. So, fast forward, I made my high school's first website. It became the first high school in the country, public school in the time to have a website. The school gave me a laptop and the thing just started getting better. And a couple of years later, I started university studying computer science. And I had this opportunity to build software for exports. Like if you need to export something from most countries, you need something called a certificate of origin. So the certificate of origin will determine the origin of the goods. So at the time they were using a typewriter to produce these certificates, and you can imagine producing the reports and everything becomes a challenge. So I built a system to automate that whole entire process. And the system is still in use today. And I said, okay, I'm second year in uni. I managed to build a system that the state somehow depends on. I bet I could do this for a lot of companies. And that's really when, a few years later, I registered a company and started focusing on. So this is where I started. This was my room. So this was very messy, cables all over the place. So this was just me sitting in there, learning. I spent 2 years in here actually after high school. So I spent 2 years. I think somebody's got to mute. So this is where I was for a couple of years. This is where the office was. This is where we were when we launched our first website. We already had a couple of clients. We're working from here. And later on, I invited 2 young people onto the company, Waka and Jonga. Waka is currently doing his PhD. So very soon we'll have a PhD on our team. Jonga is also doing his master's. So the team has since grown to 13 people, but these were the core people, that were the first people that were with the company and worked very closely to make it where it is today. And so at the time we were focused on building mobile applications, web applications. We did some projects in virtual reality. Recently, we did some projects in machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I'll tell you a bit more about that. So we have a couple of clients. These are the clients I can talk about. So this is the Chamber of Commerce and one of the biggest gas companies in the Gambia, and a company in Berlin, a marketing and advertising company, which I will tell you about in a bit. So this is some of the team. The youngest member is 16, now 17. He was 16 when he joined us. Now he's in the US now, starting his BSc. I met him here on the trade fair, and he told me that he plays video games and he wanted to know how those video games were made. And he went online and taught himself to code. And a few years later, he was one of our engineers. And he's really, really brilliant, really, really brilliant. And we have some people, and I'll tell you the stories of some of these people. The reason why I'll tell you is we have things very diverse. So a lot of times people think to code, you have to have a certain background and all these kinds of things. So for example, this is Abu Bakr. We call him Abux. He had a degree in electrical and electronic engineering, and he came back. When he came back, he was working with an electrician, and he's a very brilliant guy. I mean, when he was in the 11th grade, he took the final exams, which he was supposed to take in 12th, and he had 7 A's. So it was really brilliant, and he went to do his degree, and he came back, and there were not much opportunities, in the electrical and electronic space. So he was working with an electrician. So I told him, look, if you're interested in coding, check out Free Code Camp, which I will share with you. Later on, I'll share with Helen. You check it out. And he did that. He learned to code, and he was able to work on the projects. He was one of the key people working on the project for this company in Berlin. And many other people. Ibrahim, he doesn't have a computer science background. He studied mathematics, and he decided to go on Free Code Camp and did some courses on data science and machine learning, and did a quest, and he essentially taught himself and be able to build some very interesting machine learning models. And one of the projects that we're working on is, like the CAS power meter. I don't know how you call it in Sierra Leone, but there's this power meter where you put in the numbers for power. So because we want to be able to get the the status of the power in real time. So he built a model that could just take a photograph of it and just extract the meter readings. So that was very interesting. And this is Bente. He never really, he barely completed high school. He went online, taught himself to code, invited him over to the office. He showed me what he did. 10 minutes later, we gave him a job. He's right now, the company is heavily dependent on him. He's really good. And then you have people who went through a 4-year degree program in computer science, etc. So the rest of the team, essentially. So some of the projects we worked on, is one of them was in virtual reality. So for example, 90% of our 18 to 20% of our economy is on tourism, right? So when the tourism board would travel fairs, photographs at best. So we built a virtual reality environment that you can use in the Oculus Quest, Facebook Oculus Quest. So you can get to see some touristic sites as if you were there. So for example, so you can put on a virtual reality headset. So this is the stone circles, for example. You can have an experience of the stone circles as if you were there. So if you had the Facebook Oculus Quest headset on, you can install this on there. It would be as if you were working in the stone circle. So this was one of the projects that we worked on in virtual reality. Can you still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other project is a project we did for a real estate company where they had a printed sheet on a board where they put pins and they stick the plots that are available and the plots that are sold. So we built them a system to be able to, in real time, based on their activities, to show plots that are available, plots that are reserved, and to automate the process end to end, even generating the sales agreements, etc. So this is the third project I'm going to show you. It's for a company in Berlin. They are a marketing and advertising company. So they have robots that do handwriting. So the robot doesn't look like this. I can't show you their robot because it's proprietary, but it's, so for example, a CEO of, a large company would want to send handwritten letters to their top 300,000 customers. So obviously it's impossible for the CEO to even write 10. Not a good use of their time, right? So for example, you could take the handwriting of the CEO, teach it to the robot, and the robot would write 100,000. So we built a software to allow them to be able to simulate that process. Very interesting project. So we've grown a little bit every year. The first years was a bit tricky, but we have really made a lot of progress. So now we have a diverse set of projects that we work on depending on client requirements, mobile apps, web apps, data science work, machine learning, virtual reality, Internet of Things, electronics prototyping, depending on security, depending on what the client needs. So we have different kinds of teams in the company. We have a back-end team, front-end team, data science and machine learning team, and mobile development team. So these teams work together to get a project done end to end. So we do a lot of fun projects in the office just to get people excited. For example, we automated a lot of things in the office. For example, if I'm heading to work, this is pretty standard around the world now, right? But if I'm going to work, I can turn on the ACs, I can set the temperatures from my phone using the Google Assistant, I can turn on the TV, I can control the lights. And so it was a very interesting project to work on, especially because if you build your own hardware to be able to make this work, it's pretty fun. And we do a lot of amateur rocketry. So we build rockets that fly. Very interesting. So you can buy the rocket engines and you can just focus on the aerodynamics and the material that you're going to use. So I had to put this in there because I was just presenting this to the university students. I had to get them very interested in coming to work with us. So I had to tell them about what we do with food and exploring and all the fun stuff that we do. So this is some of my tips a couple of years ago. These photos were old. So this is just outside, and this is just outside the entrance of our office. Well, our old office. we are in the same building on the next floor on a bigger space. So this is just us sitting outside and chatting, coding, and taking a photo and a photo shoot. Yeah. So this is our board. This may not be very interesting to you. So these are people that these are people that people in my country would know. So they are on our board. And this is the first Gambian that worked on Facebook. I had a chance to visit him at Facebook a couple of times, and it's very insightful. So I'll answer any questions that you have, and I hope that was helpful.
Thanks, Hassan. That was interesting learning how you guys grew. So do you guys have questions for him? Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah,
Okay, go
heard
ahead.
a lot about Hassan experience and all, and that's a good move. Hassan,
Hassan or Hassan?
Hassan.
Okay, Samuel, go ahead. It's a little hard to hear you. It's you're kind of distant. It's hard to hear you. But if you want to type in your question in the chat, that would be good too. Or if you want to make the volume louder.
I've heard about
Okay, there you go.
Hassan experience, of which is a great move to us. But all of his experience was based on IT development. So, what else if I wanted to quit short term standing up? So his experience was based on IT stuff, and of which is good and all. But I'm trying to know, Mr. Hassan, your lapses and your failures when starting your business. So how was it, and how you later on try to hook up and then you go to short and angle. So I want to know your step you decided to take in order to reach short, a great development.
Right. So I didn't hear the question properly, but one of the things that I heard was failures. Was it?
Yeah. Your
And then you said,
lapses or failures you started
Right.
doing.
So I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have had is getting engineers to build like state-of-the-art solutions, right? Because there's usually a gap between academics and industry, right? So the way we work with that is, so it's always not possible to be able to find somebody who is ready to do the job, right? So it takes a while to be able to get people from school who have so much potential, who are really smart, doing great, and having them, coaching them through being able to understand industry standards and best practices, understanding acceptable and maintainable. That has been a difficulty. So that means that, what would have otherwise taken, here is the work, let's get it done. You would spend a lot of time building your team before you actually start realizing the result for what you are doing. So I think that's one of the challenges. The other challenge is, how do you get funding, right? Because people over here, the kind of investment they're used to, people who can invest. It's more like, okay, you want to buy rice. Okay, we know rice. Okay, get this amount of money, go import rice from wherever, put it in a store, sell it, get profits rather than that. But the whole idea of long-term rewards, long-term returns for investment, many of the investors may not necessarily understand that. And even when they do, inviting them over could be a bit tricky because you could end up focusing too much on short-term things as opposed to the long-term rewards. So then how do you strike that balance? How do you build a company? How do you bootstrap a company? So, I mean, we have really learned a lot in that regard. We really haven't raised since. I mean, I'm sure at some point in the future, but it's really hasn't been critical. So we really learned a lot. But I think that is going to change for sure. It's just a matter of time before people start seeing, oh, actually, this is fairly new, right? Fairly new. Like in my country, there's no tech product that became mainstream. There's a lot of products, international products that became mainstream, like WhatsApp, etc. But we don't have local products that are mainstream. So it's just a matter of time. So I think those, and any startup will tell you, is the funding bit and getting engineering talent. So it's just about how do you really navigate that. So those were my two challenges. So I like to think that the decisions that we make. So in running a startup, sometimes when you make a decision, you may not see the results of that until the next maybe 3 years. So I think the results of the decisions that we have made 3 years ago are just still slowly unraveling. Maybe the failures, the real failures are yet to show, and this will happen for sure. Yeah.
I think Genesis has a question. Genesis, if you want to ask your question, there you go.
Yeah, hello. I don't know if you're getting me. Everybody is getting me. Clear? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a question in relation to policy. You know, in every environment, you know, there must be policy that have been set up to control or direct certain activities in a country or your environment, you know. So what I want to ask Mr. Hassan, you know, is the policy, the government policy in relation to your technological development, you know, in relation to your environmental, in relation to your education, in relation to, you know, what adds to your success actually, you know, what prompts you, the government policy and the country policy, because I think you're in Gambia, right?
Correct.
Gambia, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Gambia. We are in the same sub-Saharan Africa. I know there must be policy which governments have put in place in respect to your development, and I think if we might look into that policy in our long endeavors in becoming an entrepreneur, that will add a value to us. So I want to know about the government policy in relation to your industry and in relation to growing up, you know, that environment that you work in. Thank you.
Right. So I think some of the things that are happening here from a tech standpoint are very new, right? You know, most of the projects that we have worked on are kind of a first. So in some cases, the government does not really have any regulation or policy in that regard, which could be a blessing or a curse, right? So because of that, from that standpoint, we have not hit much limitations, right? And if you see if you understand my story, you know, when I was young, by default, everything I wanted to do, in most cases, what you need to do it is not available, right? So my wiring naturally is just whatever the circumstances, just use that and make something out of it. So I think that, you know, there's so many limitations in every corner, especially working in running a startup. It's not like everything is predictable. It's not like a system. So it's not like there are already support systems that you can count on that are consistent. So naturally, it's just trying to understand your environment and just try to make progress. And naturally, the government wants you to make progress, right? Because they want to tax you. So if you make progress that they can see, they don't have a choice but to support you. Because they will, I mean, don't break any rules. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to tell you. By rules, I mean laws. Taxes. You need to educate yourself on taxes, right? I mean, if you set up a business, already there are some tax implications. If you don't make any money, you should go and declare that you did not make any money. So this is really something you should learn about. And just and the other thing is books, like startups. You start early, and you're very interested in just getting the work done, working on this project. You're mostly engaged in engineering stuff, and it's very easy to neglect the other things like your books and accounting and finance and all of that stuff. So really, in the early days, I mean, you can't afford maybe even an accountant or maybe a finance manager or something like that, but find somebody who you would outsource this to, or at least somebody who would advise you on how you set things like this very nicely. I mean, eventually you can always go back and fix it, but it's going to cost you more, and it's going to look very interesting if you would get it done at that time. It's going to be very impressive. But ultimately, what's really more important is growing your business and making progress, because that you can take. Don't have everything right and your business is your point. So I think, and the other things are, the last thing I'd say in that, it's one of the things Jack Ma talked about, I heard in one of his talks. He says that, when he tried to start up Alipay, one of the things is everybody tells him, you're not going to be allowed to do this. The government and regulation, it's not going to let you do it. So he said he didn't take permission. He just did it, right? And they saw, oh, this actually makes sense. And then they supported him, and I also saw another talk, from Mark Cuban. He said he received an email from the founder of Uber who was saying, oh, I want to set up this company. It's going to be called Uber Cab. And I want it will work like this, da, 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 da. And he's like, he started grilling him about, oh, how are you going to make that work? Regulations, this is not going to allow you. These taxi companies are not going to do this, they're going to do that. They never really heard from him again. And he said one of the advice he gave, forget about the regulation, just get started. The regulation is just, don't break any laws, obviously, but just get started, and then the regulations will follow. So, and he regretted why he didn't invest in Uber in those early days. And so yeah.
Genesis, did that answer your question? You're on mute.
Yeah, I see the point which he is trying to arrive at. Yeah. Hello, everybody's getting me clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I think I see the point he's trying to arrive at.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I see the point he's trying to arrive at, in relation to getting started and everything, But take a look at the global economy, the structural adjustment program, which was instituted, and in relation to Western world, why I ask this, you have to understand the global structural adjustment program. From your own perspective, this is your own product. Is basically technological products, and technology, we all know the revolution we are in presently, that is industrial revolution, and technological products attract investors, So take a look at another perspective. Maybe there are many businesses out there, and technology actually was successful for you because of the challenge, the opportunities that are being presented to technological products. As we all see, even in school, technological and science students have been given opportunities because we all know the revolution, industrial revolution that we're into. So, but take a look at another perspective, and the structural adjustment program, which is being instituted by the geopolitical arena, in relation to other products like agricultural sectors, which are obviously facing serious challenges in these sub-Saharan African countries. So what perspective, can you relate this perspective to agricultural field in respect to in agricultural field especially? Can you relate this, your success story or your challenges and your business ideas, your opportunities, to another? I want you to look at it at another perspective. It might work if it might, if it can actually work, in relation to agriculture. And so, I don't know if you understand my question.
I understand. And I hear you. I hear you. And the challenge is that, the challenge is that I don't have expertise in that area. And my journey really is not in the agricultural space. So I don't think it would be fair to assume that, my journey, it's the same thing if you were in agriculture. So mostly, I'm just talking in the tech space, for example, and innovation. But I think one fundamental principle is to, at the end of the day, the government is not supposed to want to stifle you. The government is supposed to want you to grow so you can pay taxes, right? Some countries might have different systems and different dynamics that can be really complicated to deal with, but ultimately, the focus should be on bringing value on the table and being able to show that value and trying to get support. I know this is not as simple as I am making it, maybe I'm making it seem, but it all comes down to trying to create value, and hopefully with that, you can rally a lot of support around what you're trying to do. I mean, we import more food than we produce, and that's crazy, not because we are not incapable, but it's just, if you look at the problem theoretically, it looks very simple. We have land, we have rain, we have water. Why rice is our staple food? How comes we can't produce all the rice we need? It sounds theoretically very simple, but it's not like people haven't tried. Many people have tried, right? And 2020 was supposed to be the year we would be food self-sufficient. That's what we said, I think, about 10 years ago. So it's really not like one answer that just fixes everything, but just in every case, right? So I think in the agricultural space, it might be a lot more complicated.
Yeah, and just to add, so I do work with a lot of agriculture companies that are African based, but Genesis, to your question, you're going to face the same challenges, and I'll bring another organization, another version of Hassan, except the guy is like a CEO in Cameroon of an agriculture greenhouse farm that's exporting a lot of products outside of Cameroon, and also distributing locally. But I think his point really is that you have to bring value, right? Like, I think a lot of times we're always waiting for somebody to give us something. I see that as like a issue on the continent, period, even an issue in America, right? In certain ethnic communities, as we have been conditioned to wait for someone. And the reality is you don't need permission from anybody to do something. The thing is, it's like the world, the universe, people will find you when you're in motion. Like, you will get connected to someone as long as you're doing three things: asking questions. If you don't ask questions, nobody can answer you back. If you're not exploring and trying things, nobody can, you're not going to see if it works or it doesn't work. And then as long as you're putting something on the table, like, I think the reason Hassan succeeded is because he didn't wait for anybody to say, do this, do that. He found an interest, and then he was like, let me build this and see what that happens. And then somebody takes notice, and then it's like, okay, let me build this. If I could do it for this person, then I can, clearly there's going to be a market for it, right? And then it just grows and scales. And his story is very similar to a lot of people who are entrepreneurs. Nobody said, Helen, go start a company. Nobody said, Hassan, go start a company. We all just were doing things, right? Whether we worked for somebody, we were in school, we were doing something, and then we started actually building something, right? And then we brought people together and we said, hey, I'm building this. You want to join? You want to help? And then from there, we started looking, as you slowly grow, you started looking for other networks that are beyond the capacity of where you're at. I think, Hassan, it might be helpful if you share kind of like your Mandela Fellowship and some of these other like international experiences that you personally reached out and applied for, and like the value and the impact that they brought.
Right. So remember when I told you that, I spent 2 years in my bedroom in that photograph? So the few months that I spent in the Mandela Washington Fellowship working at a company in Silicon Valley, it was like 3 years if you compare the 2, like it's equivalent to 3 years, because I learned processes, not just technology, but processes, like how you structure things end to end in a way that's optimal and efficient. So I think the Mandela Washington Fellowship is one of the really highlights of my life. I mean, so far. So, it was something that I applied once before, never really got any response. Well, I did get a response, but I didn't get through. I didn't get into any of the interviews, but I was below the age requirement. And I applied again. It just means you don't have to apply once, you can just keep trying. And I got accepted, and we had a training in the US. So there's the institute part, and there's professional development experience. So 700 were selected in total. So out of that 700, they select 100 that will do the PDE. So I'm very fortunate to be able to participate in the PDE. And then, you learn a lot of things, business. We did a couple of courses at a university in the US. In my case, it was Clark Atlanta University in Georgia. Very interesting, very insightful program. And then I went on to do the PDE in the Bay Area at a data analytics company. So it was very, very helpful. And I really encourage you to apply. And that's where I met Hellen, and we've been in touch since. So I think Leone Washington Fellowship is definitely one of the most impactful things that has happened in my
Samuel, did you have a question?
Yeah, I want to know what are the skills to try to implement in order to be successful in his business. What are the skills he put in place in order to be successful in his business?
Right.
Starting up a business must have some basic skills, right? What are those skills you try to implement in order to be successful in your business?
So I think that's kind of a tough question. I mean, I don't think there's like, you can formalize this. These are the check boxes, and if you check them off, you're successful. But there are certain things that really are helpful, and one of them is grit. Like you definitely should be ready to put in the hours and not give up, even if you stumble a couple of times. Right? So that is very helpful. And being a team building, being a team player. So one of the things I focused on really was on people who are really good at what I suck at. So if somebody's really good at design and I suck at design, so that's what this is how I first started building a team. So I think being a good team player and being able to motivate the team and to set a path of where you want to go, and you just execute on that. And one thing that I find to be very helpful is you really must get a mentor, right? You need to find somebody who is where you are, at least in certain regard, and you get in touch with them and reach out, right? And show them where you want to go. And when they give you help in terms of advice, you execute, you like over deliver. But I think that's really helpful. But I think that one of the things that I found really helpful was to read a couple of books about business and entrepreneurship, and it's been really, really helpful. Like The Dip by Seth Godin. I don't know if I pronounced it right. Grit, vocal grit. I don't remember the author actually. Crossing the Chasm. It's also a very interesting book. So I think that really helps a lot, because you need to look at the rest of the world as a benchmark. So you don't really look at what X is doing on my right and on my left. You look at what the rest of the world is doing, and you want to be able to use that as a benchmark. So you shoot for the stars, right? So, and that's really how we have been able to deliver products, solutions for clients around the world, because we didn't say, okay, this is what everybody else is doing locally, but we said, this is what the world is doing. This is the technologies people are using. Especially in technology, it's easier. Like you can have code that is written by people who work at Google or Facebook or Netflix for the past 5 years, smarter than you and smarter than us. And you look at their code base and see how they did something, and you learn a lot from that. So you can be able to ship. Yeah, so you stay hungry, you think big, not just, maybe you can see that behind. Think big, like you have big dreams in terms of what you want to accomplish. I think these things help. And there's a lot of material about really what the things that you should do to have a successful company. So I typically don't really recite those startup platitudes, but I think that I'm just trying to tell you really what I can feel, what I can remember really was very helpful to me, which may be helpful as well. But it's okay to fail and don't give up. And you can always try different things, get help, build a team. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's take 2 more questions and then we can wrap up. Does anybody else have any questions? Just unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to know why Hassan decided to be an entrepreneur. Why?
The question is like, why did he decide to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I really decided. You know, like I said, I just created the software because I love coding, and I said, oh, I could get paid for this. I can't believe it. And you know, and I just keep doing it. I didn't. Well, when I was in high school, I've always thought about setting up a company, right? And I've even said that the company is going to be called this. Because
What is?
no, it's going to be called Assutech, right? Because how that started really was, so I was building, I figured out how to build websites, long story short. So I said I was going to build a website just to show my friends that here's a website. But then I said, because at school, and everybody had textbooks, so we had to copy notes from the teacher would write it and we'll copy. So I said, okay, if I would build a website for myself, let me put my school notes in it. So I spoke to one of the teachers and he allowed me to use a laptop in the class and copy the notes from there so that my classmates wouldn't have to copy. They can just go and download the notes from the internet when I host the website. So, and that website was called Astrotech. So because of that, I've always thought, when I will set up a company and it will be called Astrotech. So, but I was thinking, to set up a company, I have to finish high school and I have to go to university. I have to work a little bit, get a master's, I don't know, then work for a few years, then set up a company. But when I was in uni, second year in uni, I started that. In fact, I never actually finished. I spent 3.5 years studying information systems and computer science until the company really consumed me. And I didn't say, okay, I'm quitting school. I just said, okay, I'll take a break and just focus on the startup. Then we had a bunch of projects coming in and they were raining in and it was getting crazy. So I said, I'll take a break from uni. I never really went back. So at this point, really, 95% of people who work here have degrees. I want to provide opportunities. I want to focus more on providing opportunities for people to get work as opposed to. So I didn't really decide, really. I think it's just kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a myth that people decide all the time to be entrepreneurs, especially people who actually build a company, right? Like it's almost like I agree with you. I didn't wake up and I said, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I just kept doing something. And then eventually somebody paid me, and then I was like, okay, I might as well register the business then, right? And then do the work. So I think it's great that you guys are interested in learning what the components of entrepreneurship is. But I think a lot of times real entrepreneurs start from solving something, right? Either solving a problem or being excited about something and seeing an opportunity and then engaging in the opportunity. And the next thing you know, it just kind of cycles and it grows. And then eventually you get to a point where you're like, okay, this might be real. Maybe I can really do this, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So one more question. Does anybody have any last questions? Burning questions?
Burning question.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, once again, this time is not about a question. Um, I know something must have brought us together. You said actually, both of you said you woke up, you have this intuition of being an entrepreneur, and boom, it's all occurred, and you walk towards that path. I knew something must have brought us together. I know we all have our endeavors and the global consciousness, everything, we all have our thinking, we all have our mindsets, we all have our goals. Something is hitting me, just like as it is as it have done to you, about being an entrepreneur. I know we are on the right path. I know the universe has brought us together. I know. And by chance, if we could work together, agriculture and technology can work hand in hand, and also your career, you can add a lot of value. That is why I said, we have learned a lot actually in this meeting, but only if we can find a way to reschedule. There are a lot of things which we can talk of, which this time is very, very limited. There are a lot of questions, and we all know the world we are living in. We have so many opportunities, but the challenges are many. The government, the pressure, the government, politics, religion, these are all the pitfalls which are very observable. You need to keenly understand. So if you can reschedule or find another time, I have a lot of questions. Something is hitting me. Just like as in the global consciousness, you have your own, something actually as is moving me, but I need to have a clear understanding, in relation to my environment, in relation to how to relate, how to correlate between technology, science, social science. These are very related things, but if by chance we all try to come together, have a concrete understanding, try to put some effort, some amount of, try to bring relation, try to mitigate these factors, I think we can be successful, not only for us, you can add value to our life by doing so, by contributing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Genesis. I think that's,
Thanks,
I agree with
Genesis.
you.
I think that's, I agree with you.
So even this conversation was actually organic, right? Like I didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to do training for students in Sierra Leone, right? That's not what happened. I woke up one morning and I got a WhatsApp message from Samuel, who I don't know, right? And and he was the one who, it takes initiative, honestly. Like you don't know what something is gonna produce unless, I always say, ask the question, that's it, right? And see what happens. And I think as of, from him, he took the initiative and asked the question, and told me about himself. Cause I said, okay, so what are you looking for? Like, I don't know what you're looking for, right? And he asked the question and told me about who he was. And, he's a college student and his interest in entrepreneurship. And then, and he was like, I have similar friends who are also interested in this. Is a topic area where we were like to talk to entrepreneurs. And then my thing is I get a lot of requests daily from people everywhere saying like, help us with this or connect us here and whatever. What I have learned in the beginning, I used to say, yes, okay, but now I don't do that. I say, okay, I can help you if you do 1, 2, 3, right? And I told Samuel, I said, if you identify other students who are interested in this, and then I'm happy to put something together and bring my network resources to the table, right? And the reason we're here is because he actually did the work. Like, this is what I told him, and he went and turned around, created a WhatsApp group, put like 20, young people on there, constantly followed up with me every day about it. We set up a time, then, I sent out the survey just to understand you guys a little bit more. And then he followed up to make sure all of the 18 people that were in that group actually responded to the survey, right? So again, it's little things like this that you don't think is a big deal, but now you have a new person in two new people in your network, right? Like you have Hassan and you have myself. And like Hassan said, mentorship, access to information, these are the things that are going to help you. So I'm a believer that, you know, 1,000,000 people can say they want something, but only 5 people show up to the table, right? So you had 18 kids, and I know technology, internet was a huge issue today for a lot of people. So that's why we're recording this part of it so I can share it with everybody later. But like Genesis, you know, like you said, something kind of pulled us all together here for a reason. And maybe the reason is for you guys to learn something. Maybe, who knows, 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, maybe even you and Hassan might actually develop an agri-tech situation in Sierra Leone. Who knows? We don't know, right? He's down for it. But the point is, you know, it's these kind of small steps that lead to bigger things. I think sometimes it can be very frustrating because you have something you want, and the environment and the climate, the market, the country, regulations, lack of regulations can be frustrating. But you don't focus on the huge picture all the time. Like, have the big, think, like he said, think big, have the big vision, but then work every day towards something. Like, because if you're not doing it, and then two, people will only trust you. For me, like I said, if you ask me something, I'm gonna ask you to do something in order for me to execute on it. If you do it, then I will give you 100%. But if you don't do anything, then you're not gonna get anything from me, right? Because my time is very valuable. I don't have a lot of time available. You know, that's why we have to do this today on a Saturday. I know Hassan's also very busy. And so, you know, I think you guys, the ones who showed up for today, and I noticed you guys your internet kept hanging up, so you kept joining, and I appreciate that, because it does show like your commitment to being present, and commitment to asking questions. So I thought this was a good session for the first one. I think Hassan will be back when we can get more, you know, different topics. But I wanted to highlight Hassan because to me, he's an example of what you can do, right? He's not older than you. Like, Hassan, how old are you?
29.
Hassan's only 29, so he's in the same age group. He's not even in the 30s yet. And he managed to build a company. He managed to build not just a small company, but a really large company that's very well respected in his home market and expanding overseas now. So if he can do it, there's nothing, I mean, he's special, but there's nothing extra about him. Right? He's a friend, so I can say that. But no, the point is, he had, you know, he started with nothing. Like he said, he's always had to figure out how to make something out of nothing. And you know, it's possible. Like, he's a perfect example of what's possible when you have grit. So when you're constantly like, okay, you won't let me do it, that's fine. I don't need your permission. Okay, that's fine. Like, if you just take the next action and the next action and the next action, even if you face all the challenges, you'll get somewhere. And he's an example of how you can get somewhere. So hopefully that was helpful. Any other comments, situations, thoughts before we wrap up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think that was meant for us then. Okay. All right, well, Samuel, go ahead.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think a colleagues of mine wants to make a submission in relation to what we have gone through. I don't know. He has something to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Abdul.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, well, actually, sorry for me not participating due to my phone.
No
Phone
worries.
is off. Well, actually, it's relating to some of those books you made mention of.
Mhm.
If we can have some PDF on them, those books you made mention of.
Yeah, I'll send you guys an email with a list of kind of like resources, and then a few PDF books that I know are available that you can download and read them. So yeah, I'll send those.
Okay, that would be nice. Then again, I want to know if we want to get in touch with you, knowing some skills and know-how on entrepreneurs. How is that going to happen?
You're saying with me or with Hassan?
Well, with you or Hassan, anyone.
Yeah, so we're like, me and Samuel agreed, we're gonna do 4 sessions. So we did this one today. We'll do another one to talk more about entrepreneurship, but I think I'll focus on bringing maybe an agriculture person that's developed similar like Hassan did on the continent. So we'll do 4 more sessions on entrepreneurship. That way we can dig deeper. So today was just like foundations of entrepreneurship. Obviously, we're all in the same WhatsApp group. You have my email if you have any specific questions. And then Hassan, if you want to, you're open to, connecting with them.
Sure. So I will share my email here now. So I've just shared my email on the chat. So feel free to get in touch anytime.
Yeah, and as a follow-up, I'll share his email on the chat as well, or in the follow-up email. So if you guys have direct questions for him, or just want to, sometimes it's just important to stay in touch with somebody who you think could help you with network, so you can ask questions in the future.
Cool.
Okay. I've got all what you said.
Okay. Samuel, did you have anything else?
He's talking of you message the email and you're looking out for it. Can you find it? I don't know. He said
Yeah, Hassan Jallow sent his email. Trying to get access.
Yeah, so Hassan sent his email in the chat, so you guys can save it. But I'll follow up because I know everybody's not always on a laptop.
He's not always on the laptop.
I'll follow up in an email.
I'll follow up in an email, so you'll have it on there.
Okay.
And then Genesis.
Yeah, actually, I want to personally thank you and Mr. Hassan here, for such an insight, for the contribution, for everything. I want to thank each and every one of you, personally, and as a group, and in the long run, I know the future is pregnant, and obviously we are going to deliver in something in the near future, not that far in the near future. We are going to deliver. The future is pregnant, and we are hoping to work with you, just as I said earlier. We are hoping to work with you, trying to relate these things, technology, social skills, and everything. So far, we are trying to build. I do admire Mr. Hassan a lot personally. I was hoping you could mentor me personally because I do admire your spirit. Your age. Taking a look at your age, your challenges. That you came across and you came out strong. I do admire that. As a young person, I'm hoping to learn more from you, and also Miss Hellen or Sassy. Okay, yeah, I do want to appreciate you. I do admire also your commitment, your time. Having some time, because time is very, very precious and very important. That is why I said earlier on, in relation to time basis, time is very important. I want to thank you also. And Mr. Hassan, I'm hoping to learn more from you, sir. You are like a mentor. You are like a mentor to me. Both of you you have add value to us, and we are hoping someday, just like I said, the future is pregnant. Someday, in the near future, we are going to walk hand in hand. I promise you this, by the grace of God. I'm a believer, just as you have said. I'm a believer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hassan, you have anything to say? Wrap up, and then we're done.
No, I think I'm very thrilled by the stories you explained, especially with Samuel and Sumana. I mean, Helen is very busy, and the fact that you're getting this thing done, it means that he's really impressed by the work that you have done to put this together. So thank you so much for creating this platform, Helen, and I really appreciate you taking from your valuable time and years of experience to give back to the continent. And we hope that we have more of you out there who have not left us and forgotten us. So, and this is that's one of the things I really like about him. He's always very active about it. Look at the list of activities, you will see a lot of them are related to supporting the continent and getting stuff going, in every aspect. So thank you so much, and you continue doing that. We are very pleased to see that, and hopefully we'll have more of these sometime in the near future.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Hassan, for taking time out of your busy schedule as well, because I know what your schedule looks like, to do this and this conversation. And I look forward to like continuing to see how you guys grow, and hopefully you connect with Genesis and all the guys in this group in some capacity. And yeah, thank you guys for all joining today. I know technology was a huge issue today for everybody. But I appreciate the fact that you make the time. I'll follow up in email and then in the WhatsApp group once the recording is done. That way others who kind of tried to log on but got kicked out couldn't make it, are able to at least see this part of it. And then we'll schedule another time. Quick question, does Saturday mornings work best for you guys, or like afternoons during school? Like what's the schedule that works the easiest? Samuel.
Yeah. Samuel, I think that question is for you.
No, it's for anybody in Genesis.
It's Saturday.
No, it's for anybody in Genesis.
Yeah. As for me, Saturday is okay. That is actually non-working week. Obviously, that will be okay. It depends only, but I think Saturday is okay.
Okay. Same for you guys, Samuel. Say that again. Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah, I really was not expecting this. I really appreciated everything. And I promise next time you see a lot of participants. It's just some basic problems we are facing, and some of our friends have gone for research and they're not there. It's a network problem now. But I promise next meeting, a lot of participants will rush to study. Training program more appropriately. I appreciate it a lot. My time to you for everything. All the best. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Get Mr. Hassan, but I know he made meaningful contributions. Thank you all. Thank you all for everything.
Thank you, guys.
I
So
don't know if you can have your email as well.
my email, you guys have it.
Okay.
You do have it. I'll follow up in email again, just so you have it again. So I'll schedule some time with Samuel for the next session. It'll probably be like next Saturday or something. That way we can just keep them going pretty fast. And yeah, thank you guys. And I'm a believer that who comes to the table, that's kind of the information is really for them. So whether it's 5 or 5,000, I've been in both situations. And I feel like people get what they attend to. So thank you guys for making time. Thanks, Hassan. I'll follow up with you later. You guys have a really great weekend. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Enjoy your evening.
Bye.
Bye.